Chapter 23. Ancients. A deep rumbling woke Felicity. She felt the ground beneath her shaking as she opened her eyes. Facing the cave was the water, and in the water were 8 towering beasts. Eyes wide, she tried to take in their immensity. They had arranged themselves with grinding, juddering precision to face the quest band, leaving 3/4 of their bulk submerged in the dark lagoon from whence they came. Reuben and Gus stepped forward, leaving the rest of the troop fanned out in an arrow to meet these mighty beasts. "Welcome to our waters, Reuben 4000th, Toxic 'Toro 2524th, Green 7070. After a pause, the Oceanid continued. Sibyllin 16,000th. Thorn 6060. Lupata 4000th. Lupata 4000th, 44. And welcome, Felicity Isabel Penfold. Its voice was muffled like someone holding their nose when they speak. Felicity suppressed a smile. Its eye swiveled up and around in its head until it focused on her. She remembered the age of these ancient beasts and was humbled. Its eye moved back to Reuben. He replied, bowing to each one as he addressed it down the line. "Welcome, Hyperion 1000th, Thea 1000th, Coeus 1000th, Phoebe 1000th, Oceanus 1000th, Tethys 1000th, Themis 1000th, Mnemosyne 1000th. These Oceanids are the oldest living creatures to inhabit the old world," said Pippi to Felicity. Looking at the scarred, barnacle-encrusted body of the one who spoke, Felicity could believe it. They were staggered along the entire shore like ships coming into dock, and all were a greyish colour. She supposed their energy had gone into their size. It was not polite, she knew, but it was hard to find something beautiful about any part of these. They had tiny eyes and an indistinct mouth right at the bottom of their square-shaped heads. When they spoke, it dropped down onto the sand like a fairy ramp. She had not really thought about the first 2 she'd met. There had been so much else to focus on, like surviving. But now, in this bare place, and faced with all 8 looking her way, it was impossible not to notice details, especially as she had discovered the shallow cave behind offered no refuge. The first Oceanid, Hyperion, was speaking again. "So for today and tomorrow we will each take one of you for instruction. Your assigned Oceanid holds kinship with you. We've been listening with great interest to the progress of your quest." The second Oceanid, Thea, took over, and her voice was even more muffled, and Felicity could see barnacles clinging all over her mouth. Poor old thing, she thought. "We heard of the resolution for Green 7070, she said, giving a regal nod to little Green, who responded with a dignified courtesy. Please don't let them speak to me, thought Felicity, panicking now about her curtsy problem. Coeus took over, and we are very pleased to see Reuben 4000th fully mature, he said, his voice deeper but clearer than the other 2. And we welcome the key member Felicity, with the aura of her world sitting so gently on her shoulders, said Phoebe. What did she mean? But already Oceanus was talking. He was the largest of the group. He was too far away to see well, but Felicity heard the amusement in his voice as he spoke. We're pleased to welcome such a mature Toro to our lands. If time was with us, we would share many memories. Georges bowed his head down to his knees, and so they continued. Tethys addressed Wolfgang, Themis Pippi, and Mnemosyne concluded the selection process by addressing Scrat. We are honoured to receive a thorn to our land, she said. It's been a long time since a thorn has come. She spoke from the furthest end of the beach, a disembodied voice carried on the wind. Gus and Sibyllone had not been addressed. Hyperion, the leader, spoke out as much as his voice would allow. Toxic, we welcome you, friend to our world and saviour of your kind. Your courage and wisdom go before you. Gus lifted his head. With sparkling eyes, he looked directly at Hyperion. "Thank you. The old world has many ways that still hold value. However, my task is not only to heal my kind, but also to ask the Ancients of the world to be tolerant of change. The quest believes there must be a better solution if we can save the roots." Reuben looked uncomfortable at Gus speaking out so directly. He stepped forward to soften the words, but Hyperion, after a pause, replied, "Toxic, toxic. We've heard you. Let that be enough for this time." It was time to approach their allocated oceanid. Sib was left unconnected. Reuben looked back at him, concerned. He walked to Coas and spoke quietly. Then he beckoned Sib to join him by the head of the giant water beast. Felicity walked slowly up to Phoebe. She was horrified at Sib's exclusion, but oceanids were not something you questioned. She was proud of Reuben for his courage. Phoebe, on close inspection, was not so frightening. Her skin felt quite dry to touch. "Good morning, young Felicity Isabel Penfold," said Phoebe's voice in her head. "Good morning, Phoebe." Felicity's mind blanked. What was her generation? Panic set in as she couldn't remember. "That's all right, Felicity," said Phoebe, giving permission by using only Felicity's first name. "Phoebe is a good abbreviation. We've been amused by your names for the company." "Do you hear everything that happens in the world from up here?" said Felicity, forgetting to be in awe of this friendly giant. "No, but all we need to know we hear," replied Phoebe. "Now please be calm. We have only today and tomorrow to equip you with all you need for your difficult task. Listen carefully." And she began. The first day was mainly taken up with rules. They must not share their information, even to a quest member. They must not listen to any change in direction apart from the authorized aquatics. Reuben, Felicity, and Little Green held the final pieces of the jigsaw, but the ending would not be wholly revealed, even to Reuben, for his own safety. "How can I protect my troop and ensure the quest's success without knowing its ending?" Goas heard his anxiety. "You will succeed." The moon rose in the sky, and the oceanids dismissed their charges for the night. As the giants retreated noiselessly back into the dark lagoon, Reuben realized Sib had not returned. He had boarded a 9th oceanid summoned by Hyperion. As they prepared the fire and shared out some orsi left by the oceanids, Sib's name bounced between them. "He maybe will not remain with us for the quest," said Georges, spitting some orsi as he spoke. Wolfgang jumped out of the way of the soggy missile and loped to the back of the cave with Pippi. It was noticeable to Felicity that Pippi was thickening around the middle. They all ate with relish. The oceanids had provided a mound of the seafood. The orsi looked a little like spiky razor shells on the outside, but when cracked open, they revealed bright orange flesh that tasted like sweet potato, Felicity decided. If it hadn't been for Sib's mysterious absence, it could have been a relaxing supper. "I think the oceanids had not expected Sib to rejoin us," said Gus, after chewing for a while. "But their resources would have informed them he'd returned to the quest's cause," said Reuben, frowning. Little Green had been silent. Scrap was far too hungry to care much what the others thought about Sib. He was relieved to have a break from him. Sibyllin and Thorn did not mix well, and he was not impressed with Sib's behaviour so far on this quest. He knew it was an honour to be here, and he would never have been so rude as to mention these thoughts. But, he thought, stuffing the entire cavity of his green mouth with orsi, it was less tense without him. Little Green touched him lightly on his arm. "Don't dim my light, Scrat," she pleaded. Her aura was pale in this cold place, but it was still present, a small blue glow in the shadows. The fire flared up. Felicity couldn't understand how there was wood in this icy place. I suppose the oceanids arranged that too, she thought as she ate hungrily. After a day of inactivity, they'd enjoyed collecting the wood, and the resulting bonfire was huge. It lit a beacon to the sea animals that quietly slid past in the dark water. "What other creatures live in the seas, Reuben?" she asked as she concentrated on cracking open her 12th Aussie. "Hyperion spoke to Sib. I know not what he said," murmured Reuben. He completely ignored Felicity's question. She didn't think he'd even heard her. She sighed. "Reuben," said Little Green's musical voice, "the Oceanids are wise. They expected Sib. It matters not that they waited to summon the 9th Oceanid. That is between Sib and Hyperion. Worry not. He'll return." As she spoke, a large black shape loomed up onto the beach. Sib scuttled off its tall back. "Well, well, I don't suppose you were expecting me back," he said. Felicity was surprised to feel sorry for him. She still didn't completely trust him, but she'd never liked to see anyone mistreated. Al had had a nasty time when she first came to Felicity's school. No one wanted to be friendless. Al joined Felicie and Sandrine, and their friendship was cemented with 3 unspoken rules. They always meant what they said, they never lied to each other, and they never kept secrets. Then one day, Sandrine went back to France, leaving Al and Felicity to remain firm friends. "Felicity, Felicity," Reuben was nudging her, "you are miles away. I can't break into your thoughts tonight. Were you blocking me?" "Sorry, no, I wasn't. I was thinking of home." "Reuben," she said, "I don't like Sib being left out." "I know," Reuben said. "I'll talk to him." He took a handful of the spiky food and, standing carefully so as not to prick himself with their little needly spines, he walked over to Sib, who lay by the fire. "Well, Reuben, this adventure is beginning in earnest," said Sib, as Reuben approached him. "Yes, my friend," said Reuben. "Has your Oceanid prepared you well?" He did not like to ask more than that. "She took me to the land of the aquatics," replied Sib. His hooded eyes were wide open tonight. Everyone had been listening surreptitiously. They all gathered round the fire now, not pretending any more. He laughed. Felicity was instantly aware she'd never heard Sib laugh before. It was infectious. They all began to giggle at their nosiness. Some of you will have visited there, perhaps. Not many do. It's far, far to the west. In seas so warm they bathe you and caress your skin. Sib's voice was warm. He was unquenchable this evening. This was his passion, realised Felicity. His admiration for the communicators of the world was unmistakable. Their centre is a vast web, he was saying. As far as the eye can see is a network of leaves and connecting tendrils, interspersed with raised flowers that sit on the infinite mat of humming plant. There's a constant flow of messaging in all directions. "Yes, and it makes a very irritating noise," muttered Georges, who stood dozing in the shadows of the flickering fire. Sib's lids lowered a moment, but not even that halted him long. "Perhaps he's been affected by the great energy," thought Felicity. "Yes, it is possible," someone said in her head. Eventually Reuben had to stop Sid's tirade of words. "Sib, we're glad you've been returned to us for a second time," he said. "Of course, we wondered if we would lose you." Sib nodded graciously and sidled away from the fire. Scrat came and lay down close to Little Green. Felicity fell almost immediately into exhausted sleep and dreamt of giant flowers sitting on large green mats stretching to the horizon. They whispered to her, "Felicity, Felicity, come join us. Felicity, come join us in our bed." But the flowers had faces, and the faces were evil little gremlins that cackled as she lay down between them. She tossed and turned in the nightmare. Reuben put his arms around her and stroked her hair. She sighed in her sleep, and the little frown between her eyebrows smoothed out. He held her and felt the pulse in the base of his throat throbbing. Sleep claimed him at last, and the camp fell silent. The embers of the fire burned an orange-red in the black night air, a tiny glow of colour in the midst of the dark waters where the leviathans took their rest, patiently waiting to launch the quest.